Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of this podcast. My name is Elliot Greenman and I host it alongside my friend Alexia Nell. In the first 2 episodes, we've spoken a lot about pain, and in this episode it's a little bit different. It was recorded back in April 2019 after the first round of XR protests, Extinction Rebellion. So we talk a lot about that, or a bit about that, and a lot about climate change. Alexi has, as always, some very interesting and refreshing views on things. Certainly changed my mind about a couple of things and made some of my ideas a bit clearer. I hope the same happens for you. It might spark some questions and a little bit of a debate. I hope it does. And if you do have any questions, please post them on whatever platform you come across this podcast on. And enjoy.
Perambulations in franglais.
When you're in your 20s, you're possibly a bit more eager for things to change, really. And when you're in your 40s or 60s or 80s, you don't really want things to change, really, in a way, really. So you get a bit more refractory to change. Because I guess it's climate change.
Yeah.
So I think it's the wording of it, the whole thing.
People think... So my opinion of it is like... people think it's going to really hurt them, which it probably will, depending on how it's implemented. So it's like, you know,
if you live in the Polynesian triangle, I'm pretty sure some people in Kiribati, the very low-lying place, and already at the UN, they've been actually asking for where they're going to live, because in a couple of years' time, they'll be underwater. They're not going to have any fresh water supply, all those kind of stuff and things. So some people are going to be affected or are being affected right now, really. And some species are being affected right now. But most people in the English countryside or in Sweden or Switzerland, apart from the skiing season being a little bit different than it was before, people can carry on doing what they're doing quite happily. And I guess that's a bit what we were talking about the perceptual type thing, really. You look outside and the earth is flat and spring has come, there's some new growth and new leaves. What's the problem, really? As long as it doesn't kind of freeze in the middle of August and we don't have much snow, and there's no ice cap kind of creeping up the Scottish Islands, I guess it's all going to be fine, really, in a way. So
for us in the Western world?
No, it's not fine for us in the Western world, because climate change is going to affect the whole thing, but we'll be able to mitigate the effect a bit better.
Yeah, because we've got the wealth to be able to do it. So if we need it, not that many places will be that affected and like the raising water levels, but if we needed to move, it's like LA, for example, California, when they need to move, they can move.
That's it.
But exactly. What does it mean? Like what? So...
Well, that's the thing, really. What does it mean? I think there's an undeniable global warming happening, a warming of the climate globally. That's the main thing. And it's most likely to do with human activity.
From what I've read, there's not much... Like, so everyone talks about the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which is supposed to be an independent report by a group of people who took studies from, I think, 32 different governments in the world. Yeah. And there's nothing in there that says it's entirely down to us.
No, entirely. No, I've not said it was entirely, but it's pushed a little bit by human activity. There are other factors, of course, and there's plenty. I think the calorific capacity of water is going to be an important thing. It takes an awful lot of energy to heat 1 by 1 degree 1 liter of water. That's one kind of interesting thing. But one that's going to have reached a certain... Well, people in the southeast of America get a very good idea what we talk about, because hurricanes are getting more and more powerful and destructive, basically, and there's a lot to do with that, really. So,
but even that is an argument. I've heard that before. So natural disasters, blah blah blah, are like killing people and things. But apparently, deaths by natural disasters has plummeted.
Yeah, an awful lot. Yeah, because we can mitigate the whole thing quite nicely, and as at the moment, it's not a problem really. But we can argue about climate change or not and things like that. It doesn't really matter too much, because it's some people want something to change, and some people don't want something to change.
Yeah, but that's
where the big problem is, really.
That's kind of why I talk about it in that way, in the specifics, because it's like, to me, it's just then it just turns into tribalism, which is what it shouldn't be, which is like, this person thinks that the planet is going to be this temperature by this time, and we're going to wipe out half species in 12 years' time, blah, 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 blah. But then...
as long as it doesn't wipe humans too fast, I think it's fine. That's the main thing, really.
But obviously we want to save animals as well. But I think when you say like,
do we really?
This is some
do
people
we really? Some people do, not many people. Because look at the chicken in the bloody factories, in the batteries, look at the pigs, look at the cows, look at the sheep, look at the fish, look at the sharks, look at the whole lot. Yeah, and the sharks are not dying from climate change too much. There's 100 million sharks being killed from fishing every year for shark fin soup. Okay? Yeah. Apparently, according to the Wagana, I'm not too sure, but there's loads of sharks being killed, and they're not being dead by natural causes, if you see what I mean, really. I think it's pretty man-made, okay?
So maybe bang on 100 million sharks.
100 million sharks.
In 2013.
That's it. So how many it is now?
But what I wanted to ask you about, or talk
gives a hoot about the sharks?
But it seems like things aren't happening. Like things aren't, like, it's not like the government. It's not like the government who are appearing to do anything. Whether they're doing something or not is a different thing. But
it doesn't appear to many people that the climate is changing. So that's the main thing, really.
So that's...
from different scientific point of view, from all those kind of stuff, there's not much that it appears to change, really. And you talk to the Chinese government a little bit, how many trees have they planted in the last 5 years, and you look at how much they are betting on renewable, how much they are trying to do everything, really, in order to try to mitigate the effect it's going to have, really. Look at the Yangtze River and how fast it flows in the bloody ocean, really. Where there's no more of it, because it's actually been diverted for a lot of the agriculture and things like that. So fresh water is going to be a massive problem. There's not as much monsoon, who doesn't reach as much the Himalaya, so there's less fall of snow, or the fall of snow is getting more erratic, and therefore the quantity is little less. So therefore in the summer, when it is meant to melt a little bit, it doesn't as much, and therefore all the rest, really. And then there's 7 billion of us to feed, really, or to try to feed, really. That's the whole stuff, really. So there's quite a lot. You look in every way, there's lots of super positive things. It's great. I don't think there's been I think there's never been as little people dying from illnesses that there is nowadays. There's never been that many people not dying of hunger that there's been nowadays. There's not, like, all the whole thing is great. It's great, but the disparity between people is quite strong. That's the main thing, really.
And people don't like that.
And people don't. I'm not too sure what they don't like about that, but I think that's a whole interesting part of the whole thing, really.
It comes back to like what we were talking about, with people kind of losing their mind or losing track of what emotional needs are a priority and important.
I think that's the whole stuff, really. I think so we go back to that human givens aspect of it, really, and the brilliant things that Joe Griffin and Ivan Tyrrell have put together a little bit really, and that they've kind of centralized a little bit, because other people had talked about Maslow, had talked about the theory of needs, and there's been loads. They step on the shoulder of giants as well, being giants themselves really, in a way really. And the main thing, if like people want to solve the economic disarray there is, and the compound interest problems there is from the debt of Africa and all those kind of stuff, is great. But if their kitchen is a pretty filthy place and their lounge is you can't even step in, and all those kind of stuff, imagine the clutter in their heads, all those kind of things really. Because that's the thing really. It's not about global warming, it's about individual mental health and getting an idea about who we are and how we function.
Why is that more important than global warming?
Well, how are we going to solve... it's great to vandalize the bloody head office of, I'm not sure which petrochemical shell place, to just get their attention. But is that really how we solve problem? Because I think that's what people want. We want to try to solve some things that we think is a problem, really. And there's nowadays a bit more of a consensus that there is some kind of problem on the level of the climate, in order for us to not have to change in the way we do things. That's the main thing. So the pressure that the climate is going to put on humanity, let's say, and the way humans are behaving and how they feed themselves, how they interact with each other, the urbanism, and all the how we mitigate ourselves against natural disasters and all those kind of stuff, is quite problematic, because we're going to have to change. Huh? But then the way we are going about nowadays cannot carry on in that fashion, but we are not too sure which direction to take. And I think most people will agree that the way they lead their lives is maybe not optimal. And we could do it a little bit better. And we could know a little bit better who we are, how we function. We could solve a little bit of crap in our own lives individually before trying to solve the whole bloody planet. That's the whole thing, really. And yes, we can go to Mars. And I'm with Elon on that one. I don't mind going to Mars, really. It's going to be brilliant, really. If it's to do the same shit than we do here, I don't think we need to stay here, really. Okay? Earth is the cradle of humanity, but you don't spend all your life in your cradle. That's one important thing about panspermia, like the spreading of life. Or maybe we should not be calling it panspermia, because it's all about like the spread of life, but I think it's the spread of humanity throughout the solar system, and maybe the near stars and all the rest, really, which is really quite a super interesting venture, really. But we're gonna have to solve quite a lot of crap, otherwise going somewhere else to do the same thing is not gonna really solve the problem, really. That's the main problem, really. I think it's super interesting, but I think it brings us back to, we need a framework. And how do we solve a solution? By actually breaking things down, really, and protesting and being angry and very emotional about the whole lot. I don't think nobody can solve problem in an emotional state. And we've talked about level of arousal. We've talked about the short-term effect of adrenaline, and adrenaline is there on Homo sapiens sapiens to actually make you think like a proverbial idiot.
Why do you call it Homo sapiens sapiens again?
It's us.
Yeah. Why are we
humans?
Doesn't that mean like wise man?
Yeah. Because we are conscious of being conscious, remember?
So we weren't, when we were, before that we were Homo sapiens.
Yeah, that's it. We were conscious. Yeah. Which is quite a big deal. But now we are conscious of being conscious. That's quite an interesting thing. And we've got that preoccupation about the future. Which is
but essentially when we are in flight or fright, we're probably not so conscious of being conscious, are we? We go back to being Homo sapiens.
That's it. Or barely.
Pardon?
Or barely. Yeah. Homo habilis. Or mind you, I don't think our dexterity is very good, so Homo erectus. Let's call it like that. We still get a bit upright, but maybe not as much as we could, really. No, I think that's the main problem, really. the level of arousal that all that creates is very negative for the whole venture in itself, really. So trying to solve your own problems and becoming quite good at it, and maybe you doing it a bit. We talked about like having diabetes, for example, and then thinking that it's your mom who gave it to you because she's got diabetes. So diabetes runs in the family. So it's because of her that you got diabetes. But the main problem is that you don't only inherit the gene, you inherit the behavior. And maybe you could have diabetes a bit later than your mom if you were realizing that you have inherited from her the fact that you're actually using sugar as an emotional crutch because of your expectation of what sugar is going to give you is completely warped, basically, because you're too emotional.
And you've learned it from a young age.
And you've learned it from a young age because you've seen it happening in your household and all those kind of stuff, really. People who are quite violent and people who abuse people tend to have been abused themselves as well. That's a bit of a sad thing to talk about, really. But it's actually quite, not all. Thank God, okay? But a lot of people tend to repeat what has been done before them, and because we inherit as well the behavior and understanding how we function and the level of arousal there is, and the fact that if you want sugar to help you feel happy, you're on for a big disappointment because happiness and sugar doesn't really match together.
It's the perfect addiction because you're just going to keep chasing it. Expecting that expectation.
That's it.
It's going to give you something more than it has.
But maybe you get that. So if you change that a little bit and you use sugar a bit differently and maybe a bit less of it, maybe you can mitigate the expression of the genes that predispose, or the series of genes that predispose you to developing type 2 diabetes. Okay, and therefore you can maybe develop it a bit later in life. Or you could maybe have children yourself if you're lucky enough, and maybe they see you doing the whole lot a little bit, and you can explain to them, maybe not so much when they're children, but you can really show them that maybe sugar is not the best thing in certain circumstances and not make it too black and white, and therefore they might actually develop diabetes far later than you, and it might actually just take a couple of generations to actually do that, really. But when it comes to climate change, or when it comes to global warming, or when it comes to global weirding, or whatever we are trying to, like the man-made pressure that we put on our planet, well, we might not have 50 years or 100 years. That's the whole thing, really, because the effect will be the longer we wait and we keep business as usual, the more profound the effect is going to be felt by a majority of people, wealthy or not.
And that's why, because I had the exact same view as you on the protest, which is like I don't actually think it's a very good step for the cause personally, but then I started.
Had you walked to London from Bristol, or had you gone on your push bike? And had you talked to other people? Had you maybe slept rough a little bit and asked farmers?
A lot of people did. Not
some people
not
did.
necessarily cycle from Bristol, but a lot of people slept rough. And
in London, But they come from a house. They took the public transport to get there. They use the infrastructure that there is. So it's quite a difficult thing to actually follow through, really.
Well, then
the main thing, really.
There's that. And then my personal opinion, which is like I like using the example of football shirts, like I'm red and he's white, or whatever, and them going and making a stand is like awesome. But then they did a couple of things, in my opinion, that are silly, like the shell.
But they're trying to change the rule of football. It's not being a red shirt or a white shirt. It's about being able to play football with your hands, not with your feet. And that's not going to be able to be called football. That's going to be handball. Okay?
Yeah, but it's a different game. But it is
global warming is that. That's it.
But that's like that's taking it in a different way. Yeah. I'm talking about my family and a lot of people that I work with who agree that climate change might be an issue and they would like to do something towards it. But seeing the media coverage of people, smashing, blah, 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 doing this, doing that, whatever. It's like all that's doing is saying they're stupid, they should go get a job.
And it's only a small minority of them who have actually smashed the things as well.
Again, but then it is red versus white. Then it is like, they're this, that's what they stand for. And all they're doing is shouting like, climate catastrophe. Yeah. We could face massive extinction by 2030. Yeah. And that to me is like, it's like an elastic band where if you can stretch it, but if you keep stretching it, if you put too much pressure, then it snaps. Yeah. And so like the weight of the argument for me is like, it loses a lot of the credibility and the weight of the argument because it's so harsh.
Or it's made to lose credibility in the way it's reported as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing as well. So, but we don't want to be too much conspiracy theorist either, because I think it's just the way the media functions. The media is not going to show little dandelion and daisies and people being really nice and talking sense, really.
There was a video by The Guardian which was absolutely amazing. It was really nice and showed a different side of it. But that's like, the media is the media, always has been the same thing. And so we need to, like, if we're going to make like a protest or try and do something towards change, then... for me, I just think we need to be much, much smarter than going and closing down.
We need to vote for people who actually champion your ideas.
Wow,
and you need to go, because that's the whole thing. It's a democracy. Revolution is great. I'm French. I'm a byproduct of a revolution a little bit, and my education and the way the state and the church have been divided and the way the king he fell and the whole lot. But there was a president and there was a minister. There was some haves and still some have-nots. And the revolution didn't really change that much, basically, in a way. Okay, it's same model, a bit of a variation on the same theme. I don't think it's an evolution would be far more interesting, and I think we need to use the tools we have. And therefore, you go and vote, you spoil your vote, we talked about that. Yeah. Or you vote for the person who champions you and your ideas, the best, who mostly the champions what you're doing. So I don't know, like how long as some of the leaders of the different parties in the UK have been in politics? 40 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. They're lost.
But how can you possibly get those areas that have voted the same MP in time and time again? How can you get them to see that?
You were talking about the youth. You were talking about the people who were 16 when the referendum happened, and then if they had the possibility to vote and things like that. Go and vote, cast your vote, and vote for the person. You can't do big changes. It's a ginormous change. Yeah. It's impossible to do it all in one. You need, when you do problem solving, you do little chunk at the time. You can't swallow the bloody planet. You're gonna choke on it, really. It's gonna be pretty deadly, really.
Yeah.
You have to do little by little, and it's one person at the time. That's the whole stuff, really. How did Mahatma Gandhi got rid of and made the UK not an empire anymore, which we would really want from having voted out, because we can be great nation again. Type thing. How did he do? Simple.
Over a long
period. He took his time. People just about salt, and it's just about salt. The tax on salt. Shit, how are we gonna do that? Oh my god, everybody's doing and then the British government will be like, you know what? When we really enjoy, I think it's awesome what you're doing. We were just about to actually give you more opportunity to have salt for free. You can have the whole salt on earth you want. Shit. What happened then? That it is fucked. You're fucked. You can't even do anything anymore because your protest has got no ground, because the government and the central institution are like, yeah, great, fab, well done, you just you got it a bit before us. Next week we are about to give you free salt for everybody in India, and actually we're going to do desalination type place. We're going to make some fresh water for everybody on top of it because we are good people, it's great, That's it. And then you can carry on the same. And people would have been like, yeah, oh yeah, thank you, yeah, we want some salt, wow, free salt. And it would have been finished. But no, the British government wanted things to stay the same. Not British government, the empire wanted to remain the same and have the same structure, and it was a little bit of a change, and the whole thing completely cracked the enamel of the whole bloody thing, and it completely collapsed from just tax on salt, and from people being a bit non-violent and being a bit like, well, I'll do my bread with that salt, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Shit, he's not going to buy our salt, what the fuck are we going to do? Yeah, that's it, really
then
small
they're-
things.
Then they're independent of the
Whole thing. System. But they play the system.
yeah.
You can't do it from something that doesn't exist. So go vote, and vote wisely, and try. But you've seen how you were lucky enough to vote. You know, I'm French. I can't vote for those kind of stuff really because it's a British.
Can you
affair.
vote? Can you vote in the local elections?
Yeah, local election. Yeah, of course. I do always vote, and even for the police commissioner, which was quite an interesting vote.
I've never voted for a police commissioner before.
Yeah, I've had the opportunities to do that a couple of times. But that's the whole thing, really. You need to cast your vote, and you need to actually, the media, the whole Brexit kind of shenanigan, the expense scandal, all those kind of stuff. We have now got the proof, if we didn't have it before, that people in power are actually only trying to meet their own needs. That's it, really. It's like being a parent, and you want to meet your needs first, and therefore you're a child, because that's what children do. Children try to actually meet their own needs first, and then parents try to, because they're parents, they try to help their kids meet their needs first, and then they meet their needs second. So there's a lot of children behaving like adults, and there's a lot of adults behaving like children. That's the thing. And politicians are a great example of a 5-year-old, basically, who's got little tantrums, and he wants to do the whole thing for himself, about power, which is not really power, it's about control, about status, about financial security. Yeah, well, like most of us, they don't have really a job, really. They don't have a job, they're just politicians. And if that's a job, I'm not too sure when it was invented, really, because I think that's it's like footballers, sorry about that really, but kicking a ball and being paid millions, there's a little bit of a weird thing really going there really.
Hey, but
That's the thing, really.
it is a weird thing, and they do get paid a lot of money, but it's a very, very scalable sport, and if they don't perform,
Yeah.
they're accountable. At least they're accountable.
they?
They get paid stupid money.
Are they accountable?
Yeah, of course they are.
How?
Not as accountable as they should be,
no,
but that's
they're
different.
not accountable.
Politicians have zero accountability.
If they snap their hamstring because they didn't know how to stretch, are they not being paid?
Well, that's someone else. That's someone else's job to teach them how to look after them properly.
Is it somebody else's problem to teach them? That's it. Well, I think that's where we're getting to, Elliot. It's not everybody else's problem. It's their own problem. And that's the problem about global warming. It's not somebody else's problem. It's all our individual problems.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing, really.
No, my point.
I'm happy about your putting your point forward.
My point wasn't about them having no accountability.
Yeah. Not enough accountable. I think they're not enough accountable, but that's
they are at least accountable slightly.
Slightly, yeah.
But
what about the manager?
Politicians are not accountable at all. It's like
I know.
there's zero accountantability.
Did we talk about the people of the bog?
Yeah, the chieftains.
The chieftains, yeah. Who have been found preserved in bog pits. You know, it's a very anaerobic environment, and people have been preserved there. We can see
A very what?
tattoos, anaerobic.
Anaerobic.
The bog people, not the boat people, the bog people.
The bog.
And I think what I read not too long ago was the fact that they were possibly people of high status. And they were possibly chieftains of the village and thing. And with great power came great responsibility. I think we know one like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Type thing, really. Okay, Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, and those people had possibly the responsibility of dealing with the false dowry from the one family and their girl, and maybe the wall of the boundary of the field had been pushed and he fell, and then the guy built it a bit further on one side, and then how much the crop and the thing, he put some little stones in it, and the weight was not really the right one, and those kind of stuff, and maybe the crop and maybe other bits and bobs. And when people thought that the chieftain was actually doing it a bit too much for himself, they had he needed to be done for the true reason, the real reason. And if it was not, people were able to beat the crap out of them to death, basically. And then you knew the next person who was going to come knew that if he was doing it, it's not without consequences.
There's a reminder. People know.
That's it. There's accountability.
Yeah.
And then you do it for the right reason, and you do it for others, and you commit to the whole lot. Otherwise, we don't want to go back to people of the bog, or the bog people, or the Bronze Age. We don't want to go back to the Bronze Age, okay? Well, mind you, that would be quite a simple solution for global warming. Really.
It would probably shake things up quite quickly, but obviously we can't do that.
That's it.
But
if you say, I mean, really, there was accountability.
How do you? I mean,
well, you stop paying them. They do it for free. Why is accountability?
And they have a job.
You have a duty to. You voted 2 years ago to get your politicians. You were asked whether to stay or come out of Europe, and the politicians were had to actually do something they might not have wanted to do, but they were asked by the voting majority of the UK people that they wanted the UK to be taken out of Europe in an orderly fashion within 2 years. And the deadline was the 29th of March. I mean, it's the 23rd of April. We haven't heard much about the bloody Brexit the last couple of weeks now. It's old news. It's still there. So trick and treat is going to be quite interesting stuff. They haven't been accountable. Had we stopped to pay them, you do that, and if you don't do it properly, and we don't recognize that it's done properly, you don't get paid.
Yeah, but we can't not pay them.
Why?
Well, I would love to not pay them.
Well, I don't pay my tax on time. I get slammed.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I get slammed. Thank you very much. You don't park in the right place. I get fucking slammed too. No. Yes, no, we can't do that and things like that. Yes, we can.
How?
Yes, we put something together and you vote for people who actually get that jig, really, and want to get some accountability. That's the whole thing, really. That's it. How many of them are going to be there? I'm not too sure, really. How are we going to do that? I think he is wishful thinking, but the manager of I'm not too sure which football club buggers the whole lot, and they have spent 600 million, I'm not too sure how much, to get some new players and all this kind of stuff, and then they do very badly, and then the whole thing, what happens? He's being dismissed with the bonus and the whole thing.
Jose Mourinho.
But maybe whoever the whole thing is, and whoever he is, or whatever, I'm not interested too much really in football. That's not really my thing of. But what I'm saying, there's no accountability. There's a little clause in the whole lot. If you bugger the whole stuff, you can be dismissed, and we give you the money, and then we're gonna get somebody else. Great, that's really great. Who actually pays those people? The fans and the people in front of TV. It's the TV rights, and it's the fans who go in the stadiums who pay for the whole lot, really. So actually, we want more spectacle. The whole guy is empowered to do the whole thing because he's telling us he's competent and he's paid really quite well. But actually, the stuff goes a bit belly up, and then we tell him to go, and then not to even fix the problem. So he doesn't have to actually change the way he does anything because he's not even accountable by it. I think it's mental illness. Yeah. That's mental illness. I think that's quite clear cut. I think we agree. It's mental illness. And I think that's the same thing with the whole lot, really. The car is fabulous. It's great. Yeah, it's great. And we talked a lot about status, and we talked a lot about security. We talked a lot about the reason why people wanted a car and to take you from A to B and things like that, really. And there's plenty of great stuff, really. I'm not sure how safe cars are. I think it's people who drive them and the skills they have and the competence they have that makes it safe. But that's a different story, really. But if you're sold a safe car and you're sold a red car, you can have it in red. No, but you can have it in white as well. Oh, and you can have it red and white. like that's like it's something really valuable.
Yeah.
And leather seats and all the rest and thing, which is great, really. I think it's great, really. But it's a combustion engine and it's producing quite a lot of greenhouse gases. That's it, really. And when the Chinese people were going to work on their bikes, there was lots of bikes. But now they want loads of cars, which is great, because we're going to be able to sell them loads of cars. It's great. So we're going to be able to carry on producing more cars. It's great. So we can have people working at producing cars, and they can be paid to buy some more shit they don't need in order to get more cars produced, actually buggering. And it's great. And the government is going to relish the whole lot, because it's all about GDP, it's all about growth. It's fab. We've sold so many cars. Wow. We've sold so many landmines. We sold so many fighter jets. We've sold so many bombs. Yes. Our industry is doing really well. No, because that's that.
Yeah.
So it's great. Shall we maybe consume other things, really?
Or try and...
I don't know. I'm not saying weapons are not a good thing. I'm just saying it's a little bit weird that selling weapons for people to kill each other is actually helping us to grow our country, really.
And celebrated.
And being celebrated, really.
Because like you say, everything's about GDP.
I know it's celebrated because we need to sell our weapons to nice people, the nice guys.
Oh yeah,
because we can't sell it to the nasty people, because the bad people.
But then who decides?
That's classic. The bad people and the good people. Kim Jong-un, bad man. We can't let him have it. Iranians, oh my God, they are the evil. They are bad people. Are they really bad people? Or I think from their point of view, we are pretty bad too. So that's the thing, really.
Which side of the fence?
Well, that's it. So there's no bad people, there's no good people. There's just like people who are a bit deluded about why they do the whole lot and pretend to do it for the wrong reason. That's all, really. And I think that's the main problem. Global warming is that problem. It's how people can live with themselves a little bit, and that's a bit the whole tricky stuff. And we've got the same problem with artificial intelligence and algorithms and all those kind of stuff, really. People don't know who they are anymore, and that's a big of a problem. I'm anxious, I've got anxiety disorder. Mate, your heart is going a bit faster because you're a little aroused and because your autonomic nervous system is playing up, and now we've got a condition. Far out. Nah, man, there's nothing more normal than that.
I had this discussion with someone
at
work today, and then every time we encounter a mental discrepancy, like a difference, and our body does something different or whatever, it's like immediately we look for like a safeguard, a safety net. Yeah. And
now we look for somebody else to give us a safety net.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And then therefore you need to get somebody who produces a molecule who can be prescribed to you because they know better than you how it is, and they can give it to you so your heart doesn't really I don't have any more palpitation now. Come on. It's like 300 million years in the making. Come on, it's all happening, it's all fine, it's all normal. And it's a bit strange that people have got very little understanding of the whole lot, really.
Yeah.
But no, it's not very. That's Joe Griffin and and those guy and Ivan Tyrrell giving a framework, because people don't have a framework. They are not explained, really. You have palpitation, but it's normal. Well done. It's normal. You're normal. Well done. Yeah, great.
Exactly the same as everyone else.
Like me, I've got palpitation too. That's it. Yeah, but I don't fantasize on a whole lot. I don't use my imagination in a completely delirious fashion. I still get quite rational, and I'm having to speak in public, and I'm breaking it a little bit, and my heart is racing a bit faster, and my mouth gets my hands get a bit clammy. Oh my god! And it's not going to be an asteroid strike. I'm not going to die of a heart attack. I'm just a bit stressed and a bit aroused by the whole lot. And my expectation of what the whole thing should be able to bring me is a bit discrepant to what's happening in reality. And that's happening all the time. That's the whole thing a little bit, really. People don't know themselves very well, and people who break, destroy things and loot stuff. But there's a gilet jaune in France at the moment, or for the last.
There's a what?
Gilet jaune, the yellow jacket. Yellow jacket. We want more money to do less work because there's people who are too rich and we're too poor. That stuff. And we want the state to help us because it's unfair. Okay, great. It's pretty. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is unfair. Yeah.
Well, welcome to freaking. Welcome to the world. Yes. Welcome to reality. Reality is fucking unfair. Yeah.
Oppression is from every single angle, everywhere.
Don't worry, it's all fine. It's going to be unfair all the time. And if you think that it should not be unfair, well, you've got a big problem, and I don't think you're going to be able to solve that one. Different story. The whole stuff is people went for genuine reason about the social kind of thing and the work. I think the discrepancy between people who earn a living from wealth and the work of others compared to the amount of money people make from their work, it becomes quite big. This is a too big discrepancy nowadays.
It compounds.
Compounds, okay? So I think people are unhappy about that. Fair enough. And there's plenty of reason why. And it's people who are like house husband and thing. They go to bloody wall serve. They look after their kids. They are really gentle people. All those kind of stuff. And they go into a big demonstration. There's 100,000 people, and the stuff start to get rowdy, a little bit heated. The IQ goes down pretty severely from 123 on average to less than 83. Because everybody's getting aroused and things like that. And a guy in a little wee hour of the morning is handcuffed in a bloody cell at the police. He's never done anything wrong. He's paying his tax. He's really diligent. He's helping his community. He's doing quite a lot of things. In that situation, he ended up bloody looting something and nicked some Reebok shoes that he already had on his shoes, on his feet.
Well, in France.
Yeah. That's it, really. And that's an example, but it's exactly that, really. People in no situation get far too aroused and they end up doing completely stupid things, really. That's the whole thing, really. So let's really look at how we function a little bit. And being an osteopath, I look at pain all day long, and acute and persistent pain, and it's a lot about teaching people how they function. And quite a lot of people know, or have got a hint or a hunch that how they function, and then they read something repeating. There's a trend, there's a pattern a little bit at play, really. And I think it's fab, but it's to have a framework to be able to step out and be able to be conscious of being conscious. That's the whole thing, really, for you to be able to apply things. And when you scratch at that and you're able to deal with all those little weirdness about you, well, all of a sudden...
can often become a strength.
Well, yeah, a little bit. And then you know yourself a bit better. And therefore, you do things a bit less because you want them, but maybe because you need them. Or those kind of stuff, okay? Do you need a big car, or do you want a big car? Do you need to be safe in a big car? Or, come on, it's not Mogadishu, really, or it's not bloody northern Libya, really. Okay, it's fine. You were in the Cotswolds. It's all good. That's it. Okay, it's all fine. So, but that's a bit the problem. We are sheltered, and you turn the tap, and there's some drinking water. You're not going to get cholera, really. Last time there was cholera in the UK, it was in London was in 1848 or something like that. Maybe last cholera outbreak, really. And a person who deciphered the fact that it was a bacteria-led type of problem, he made quite a lot of money out of it, really. That was the whole thing, really. Because he had the idea about the whole lot, he looked and we sanitized the whole thing, and it was fine, really. That was stuff, really. So we need to step out a little bit, really, rather than scream our head off all the time. Really.
If we've only got 50 years...
No, we don't have 50 years. It's now well trodden, and the whole impact of things. I look a lot about like ice cap. I look about a lot about noctilucent clouds.
Say that? No.
Noctilucent clouds. So it's very high altitude clouds made of water vapor, basically. And there's an awful lot to do with the amount of water vapor there is in the atmosphere, and then it goes really high. It's 100 kilometers. There's no clouds higher than that. They are on or 90 kilometers. They are on the edge of space, basically. Okay, and there are a lot.
And we're causing that.
Well, we've increased the occurrence of them quite a fair bit, really. There's loads of possibilities. We're analysing that with the humanity is analysing that with satellites in order to get an idea about what's happening. They were supposed to be seeded by meteors, by all the meteor shower. So yesterday was a Lyrid meteor shower, I think. Is it the Lyrid? Yeah. Oh no, the Quadrantid, sorry. Anyway, but all those kind of stuff is a bit of a different story, really. But nonetheless, there's an awful lot of the ice cap that is actually shrinking, and I'm not too sure about you, but black paint or white paint are going to behave very differently when the sun strikes it, basically, okay? And that's a bit the whole stuff. So the extent of the ice cap during the summer in the northern hemisphere, for example, is the list of the incident solar radiation can bounce off back into space. Okay?
So it compounds again. It's something that
exactly, because instead of ice, there's
sea
water, which is a bit darker. It's not really white. Okay? That's the thing, really. So, how do we go about? I think we could.
But then, don't you think it's a good idea for people to make a real noise in the middle of London to maybe?
No, we could have a party. I think we could have a good party, a big party, and I think a lot of people were there to party, but a lot of people were there just to break the whole thing, and it didn't help. And people
how do you do that?
Should be accountable when they go on those demonstrations to be non-violent.
How do you hold them accountable?
That's it. You can't hold them accountable, because if they go to that demonstration for the wrong reason, you can't control the whole lot. If everybody does it for the same reason, that's maybe not a problem, really. And people do it in a very non-violent fashion, really. But that's the thing. There was a guy who wanted to... there was a couple of scientists who wanted to... I think they have actually created a compound that could be sprayed in high atmosphere, which would actually reflect quite a lot of the incident infrared light from the sun back into space before it actually touches the ground. So we could, with few kilos or hundreds of kilos of that substance, and actually the polar vortex type thing. So it kind of stays in a high altitude type stuff, and it actually mitigates the effect of solar for very little money. Actually. Yeah, well, it's not very expensive to do that.
I'm up for solutions, of course, but that would be absolutely hilarious. The conspiracy theories that come from that.
Would it be?
Well, everyone's just going to be like proof that they spray stuff into the sky.
Oh yeah,
to control us.
To control us. Oh yeah, that's another story, really. No, here we're talking about actually just bouncing infrared radiation, so it doesn't hit the ground and it doesn't hit the water that is there, basically. Okay, because there's more water than ice. But if there was something like that, is it actually a great thing to actually do it?
Well, I don't know. What are the effects?
If we could actually mitigate the effect of global warming with a simple solution like that.
There's always things that we don't think of.
Yeah, of course. And I think there is, if there was substance like that could be spread in high altitude in summer in the northern hemisphere and in the summer in the southern hemisphere, to try to mitigate the effect the whole incident infrared radiation is having on warming up the water, and we could maybe cool things down a little bit. Is it a good thing to do?
I don't know.
No, it's crap.
Oh.
It's the worst thing possible, because it means we don't have to change anything. So we can carry on the same.
Oh, right,
All those things are made for us to carry on doing the same. That's the problem.
Again, safety net.
Safety net, that's it. So, I've got high blood pressure, but it's my doctor who deals with it. Oh, well, that's great. That's great to delegate that to your doctor. Fab. Brilliant. Well done. Good job. Well, it's one way of doing. As long as you're happy with your doctor not buggering it off. You know, there was that talk about statin, and I read not too long ago that there was half of the people taking statin, it was not really effective. When actually everybody should be taking statin. We need to pump everybody with statin so they can carry on eating butter and lard on butter with more lard and more thing, and their cholesterol doesn't go up, so they don't have arteriosclerosis, and therefore we don't have to deal with the bloody heart attacks.
What's arteriosclerosis?
Arteriosclerosis is like narrowing and hardening of the arteries of a byproduct of maybe an interesting diet, which is not very Mediterranean. In a way, really, and stress as well, like oxidative stress, which is another story. So we can delegate the whole stuff to somebody, and if somebody's got a quick fix, if we were to be able to mitigate the effect of the incident infrared radiation at the polar region in the summer, I think that could actually decrease pretty drastically the effect of global warming. But that's really bad idea, because it means that we're going to carry on going from A to B with our big cars to be safe in them and all the rest, really.
And then at some point that thing's not going to be good enough.
That's it. The French president, Mr. Macron, very wisely has put a tax on diesel, an eco tax on diesel, a green tax on diesel, and everybody descending in the street because he said it was unfair and it was affecting people who actually earn less money, who needed to go to work. Okay? And so they thought it was a punitive tax rather than a bit of a constructive one, in a way. Okay? And then you think about it, you're like, well, yeah, I think that's a great idea. But then you think a bit more when you're a bit calmer after breakfast, maybe the next day, and you think, well, hold on. Those people are actually not very well paid, because that's why they're in the street as well. They are not very qualified, possibly. Jobs, really. People who are not very qualified, who are not very well paid, tend to maybe be able to afford housing maybe around the same place in town, in a way. And they might actually go to work with other people who are coming from the same place in town. No? Maybe the commuting, that thing. So you're going to do your 3/8, for example, and you're going to build some cars in the Honda plant, or the Renault, Peugeot, PGA thing. Okay, great, brilliant. Okay, and you're not super highly paid, and you come possibly from the same part of town, and you come with your car on your own, and then you're pissed off because there's a tax on diesel. Okay, to make it greener. So it's like, yeah, so it should have been explained a bit differently. The PR was not maybe done very well. And had Macron said that money is going to help you to actually share your car share with other people who go to work with you. So we'll help your company with that, the money from that tax to actually outsource the whole thing to a company who's going to employ people, who's going to be able to look at your itinerary and where you come from, and is going to be able to put you in contact with 4 people in order for you to share your car with those people. So you'll have to use your car 4 times less, put 4 times less mileage on it, so services 4 times less, and then put 4 times less petrol. Wow.
And
so, but no, because we can't do that. It's not possible because you impose it on me and it's too much change. I want to be on my own in my car.
Yeah.
It's my little private thing. I want to shit in my car on my own. I need to be private really, and I can't have other people in my car. Well, we're not going to change that much if it happens like that, really. And I don't know, I'm an osteopath, not to say that I'm very highly qualified, but I've done a bit of studying in order to get the wall where I am, for one reason or another. And then the thing is, if I treat horses, or if I come to work, how many people come to work in my own clinic who come from the same part of town, who I can share my car with? Well, it's not very fair. It's not. I am really pissed off now. It's not fair. I don't work with too many other people, and therefore I can't car share. So I can't mitigate my the expense I've got on my car. Thank God, the government is giving me a little bit of money back for my mileage and all those kind of stuff, and it's mitigated on my tax. Fair enough, but I don't think it's really to do with that too much, okay? The argument is about I'm coming in my practice from 7 o'clock on a Monday morning in Swindon. I start at 7 o'clock in Swindon. I come from here, so it takes me 40 minutes to get there. I leave at 6:20 or a bit before in order to get there, really, okay? And who am I going to go with? Who's going to start at 7 o'clock with me?
You're not going to find many people.
Not many people, and especially if I finish at 12:30 already. So maybe somebody who should say, well, you should go and be an osteopath where there's other people who are osteopaths and you can all share and then live in the same place. And all so, I mean, really, it doesn't really finish, but a lot of people who are maybe remunerated better than people who work on the assembly line.
But
I mean, really,
that's an argument.
In a way, really. Okay?
That's an argument of people earn more money because of convenience.
People earn more money because of convenience.
People earn more money because it is now convenient for them to be able to travel 40 minutes an hour by car from the countryside to one place. It's like, okay, well, you can do that, but you're going to pay the price for it. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do that, that's fine.
Oh yeah, I could have bought
but maybe
I could have bought an SUV 3 liter and guzzle it, and then actually I could have poured because I earn a lot of money. I could have poured the gasoline behind it and lit it on fire and leave a trail of freaking destruction behind me. Yes, but no.
But that's the argument. Like, if we need to raise fuel because of the eco tax, whatever, if we do something similar, which is always going up anyway. Yeah.
But why we want to? That's the whole thing. People need to know why the tax is being raised.
Yeah, they do.
What the benefit is going to be for them individually. Because making a green tax to help for climate change is a big freaking woofy. Really.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with people doing, standing up for what they believe in, which is great in a certain way. Mm-hmm. But then to other people, it's like, well, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything to me because I'm building, people are building their careers or building a small business or building a family or building this on this scale. And they can't think beyond that.
Well, yeah, but that's already quite good, really.
Yeah, that is good.
If you can build a family, but nowadays I can tell you, building a family, I don't love you anymore, you bastard. I loved you last week, but I don't really love you anymore. I want to divorce. Great, that's going to help you to earn lots more money, really, and split the bloody wealth and all those kind of stuff, really. As if getting married to somebody was because you love them, really. No, that's the whole thing, really. It's a bit the whole stuff. You want to get married, I think it's, think about it a bit more, really. But is there somebody who wants to get married to you, really? Look at yourself in the mirror a bit, and have you got the qualities to do a good husband? Am I gonna love her long enough, really? No, it's not about her, it's about you. That's the thing, again. So even in there, that's the whole stuff, really.
But it's not helping people realise that. It's not helping people saying, oh, there's a green tax or there's an eco this or this product's super eco-friendly and it's going to save the planet, blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, that's all very well and good, but what does that actually mean to people? What does it mean? But
if we had been sold it, if the French people had been sold it by Macron by actually being the whole tax, and that money raised would have helped companies to actually subcontract another company to get the whole covoiturage is called in France, or car sharing in France, a bit better and up to scratch for them to mitigate their cost on their traveling.
then that's different.
That's different, but it's exactly the same. So that's the thing, really. I think sometimes people need to be freaking tarmac burned, like in order to realize, shit, people take their driving license and they go on the road. Driving is really fucking dangerous. When you get in an accident, you die. Okay? But you do your nails, you do the stuff, you don't even look, you text, you do the whole lot. As part of the driving license, you should go to A&E on a Friday and see a little bit drunk drivers, how they come a bit mushed into the operating theater. And that would change maybe things a bit, really, I don't know. Work with the firefighters a little bit. See a little bit the whole shenanigan. Put a smoke alarm in your house and things like that. But yeah, if you're too busy watching Jeremy Kyles on a daytime TV, drinking XXX, maybe it's not on your priority list, and maybe it shouldn't, really. And maybe it should be somebody to tell you to do it. Yeah, where do we go, really? That's the thing, really. We are making. I'm afraid. I think, and I've got a great story with my insurance, my professional liability insurance. So I've been an osteopath 17 years. I try to behave with my patients as well as possible. I try to meet their expectation as much as possible. I try to communicate that. I try to verbalize that with them quite a lot. I try to do a good job. I try to do my utmost with people. And my liability insurance has doubled last year. Wow. From something not too expensive to something not too expensive.
But still
doubled. And when I called, they were like, "Oh yeah, we've had 2 or 3 really high case of osteopath really being a bunch of bastards and behaving like a bunch of twats, and we've shared with all of you the price of that." Great! I'm being very rewarded for doing the right thing. Thank you very much. And I can sign again next year. That's great. I know that's how fucked up he is, in a way, really. He's broken a bit. You can't really do what you think is right and what people around you really enjoy for being right, and then you're not even rewarded for doing it, really, Your premium on your car is really high because you're quite young and because you're a bloke and because your car is red. What? Like, it's completely bonkers. It's bonkers. That's it. But the insurers are actually seeing that there's a more bloke in their mid-20s with red cars who get into car crashes, and therefore the whole stuff is passed on to everybody else.
Yeah, of course.
Great job. So the insurer is making money out of everybody else is doing it really well. Interesting business model. Again, I think it
works for few, I'm sure.
Yeah, it works for few, again. We're talking about pharmaceutical and research on antibiotics, and for them to keep their business model, which is quite profiteering for whatever reason, they are making money out of all that, and the health and helping the health of other people and the research of it. But we haven't done as much research because it's quite pricey, actually, and he would have cut a bit on our profit, and therefore and it was not really very easy to do, so we've not done it, or we've done it a bit but not enough, and then now we've got the bacteria have been really, really, really nasty. They've been they're resisting our attempt to kill them, really. And now, if the government could help us to mitigate the cost from doing research on antibiotics that doesn't come to a viable product, it would be really great. Oh yeah, let's do that. Brilliant. So that you don't have to change your business model. Great. That's really interesting. It's interesting. I'm not sure what the solution is. I think it's quite interesting when you dissect the whole lot and you look at how it's done.
It's another example of no accountability at all.
Not much accountability. No. They've been making money for the right reason, for distributing and manufacturing safe antibiotics and effective antibiotics for the last 50 years. And they've made quite a fair bit of money. But all of a sudden, we've got resistance in antibiotics. Who were the first people to notice that there was going to be resistance from bacteria from antibiotics? Probably them.
Probably them.
Probably them. Okay? So they've been knowing for the last however how long about the whole lot. I'm not even too sure if Pasteur had not even noticed that there was some resistance from the whole lot. Okay? From penicillin. So that's a little while back. But let's assume it's 25 years. What have they done in the last 25 years to try to
even
do
if
this?
it's not, even if it's 5 years, which is definitely more because it's been in the public eye for more than 5 years.
Exactly.
It's like you can then put in a model from your profits, like any other organization has to do,
to mitigate the whole stuff.
to try and keep going. Yeah,
exactly.
But when I said a minute ago, again, no accountability. Yeah, it's no accountability to them, but it's also no accountability to the government allowing them. Here's the money.
Yeah, or accountability from people who've got a little sniffle, who go to the doctor and they want antibiotics. Or maybe accountability from the doctor to not educating their patients that antibiotics are not really working when there's a virus or the whole lot, really. Or there's a yeast infection. I've seen a couple of kids in my small career as an osteopath, and I've looked into their ears with my otoscope, and a lot didn't have much of a tympanic membrane, really, because it was like a mushroom cultivation in a whole lot, really, and they were given oral antibiotics, and then otitis media is getting far more resistant, and the bacteria and a whole lot, but it competes with yeast, and then after we put the little antibiotics in your ear, and then if it's a yeast infection, well, what happens? Well, the yeast is feeding on your antibiotics. It makes it stronger. So it destroys all the bacteria. There's no competition. And he eats a little... And that's the whole stuff, really. That's the thing. There's loads of great stuff, but some consequences are not very looked at. There's not too many people who are able to step out and look at the stuff, really. When the car was invented, we wanted to go from A to B a bit faster. But there was not too many people 100 years ago when the car was invented. And nowadays, there's quite a few people. And quite a lot of them want a car. And then it's maybe not the best thing to get, really. In a way, I don't know. Not the thing, really.
No, I agree. Immediately, as soon as you get a car, you realise how far away you can go and go see stuff. But it's like there's a lot just right on your doorstep.
And share it with very little people because you're on your own, behind your
Very rare that you take more than one person by himself.
That's it. And I can tell you, the few people I know who work in Nationwide who actually share their car, they are not doing it any other way, really. Because the benefit... there's a few counterparts. They have to be at work for an extra hour and a half every day.
Yeah, or if people have to be early or late, but employers should be able to work a way around that, really. They should be able to.
But even if they couldn't, I can tell you, as an employee, your company is not helping you with your bill, with changing your oil and servicing your car, and the wear of the tires in your car, and the wear of the engine, and the whole lot, really. So basically, they do 4 times less mileage with their car. They use their car 1 week a month. Wow!
And that's again changing something close to you rather than getting the big thing to change.
That's it.
Is making a small change that's as impactful.
As very impactful on 3 other people. Well, there's 4 of them. So they are really impacted 4 people in the whole lot. And the money they've saved, I'm not too sure what they've used it for, but it would be quite interesting to see because that's the whole thing a bit, really. It's not so much the money you save, it's what you do with it. Maybe they went on a big paquebot, a big cruise liner cruise in the Med who produced as much CO2, so it was useless anyway.
Yeah, it was massively negative.
Massively negative.
You know, cruise liners use between 40 and 80,000 gallons of fuel a day.
Yeah. So I was told... I wasn't told. I was told against the whole lot that the 15 biggest container carriers in the world were polluting as much as all the cars in the world. And maybe it's not the 15 biggest. Maybe it's just the 10 ones. Yeah. Or maybe it's the 20 or 50 ones. Or 100 ones.
But
let's say 100. Because I was saying 10, so 10 times more.
Everyone goes on at flying, which is like, okay, maybe we do need to reduce flying, but that's never actually going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is probably never going to happen, but we could just stop long haul big tankers.
Yeah.
Because
but you could not get your plastic Christmas tree in Argos for £5.
Yeah, but
that's gonna be big trauma.
If
to a
people
lot
are
of people.
buying less, so if we try and teach people how to buy less,
that's gonna be let's not do that. Because there's a northern passage now, so we can go from China above on the northern passage, above in Russia, now that the sea ice is not there. So the fact that there's not enough sea ice in the polar cap is great. So we can go, and actually it's great for the planet because it's a far less long journey than go via the Suez Canal and all the rest, okay? Or from the Bonne Espérance, I'm not sure, Good Hope. Cape of Good Hope in South Africa to go back up. So actually to go to Rotterdam, for example. So if you go up from Beijing or the east coast of China and you go up across the Bering Strait and then you go in the north of Russia and then Scandinavia and down to Rotterdam, is far shorter a journey than it is going the other way. So actually it produces less greenhouse
pollution,
exactly. Why it brings the pollution to more pristine places, so it's not been polluted quite yet, so it's actually a bit better type thing. But hey ho, that's the thing a bit.
Yeah, but it's definitely
it's quite tricky not to be too cynical about the whole lot, really. And
we could reduce it massively.
Yeah. So a couple of my patients have bought Tesla cars. Where are Tesla cars produced?
America.
In America. How do they come here? I've not seen the bridge. I've not seen the road quite yet. Wow. I could be from... I don't want to slate people from Alabama too much, or people from Connecticut, or mind you, Connecticut people might not be, but Pennsylvania or something like that, where they don't... You say, oh, I'm coming from France. Oh, wow, did you come by train? Yeah, from the airport here, yes. But otherwise, no, plane, big ocean, massive. So there's no road, you have to put it on a tanker, onto the whole lot, and actually the amount of that it pollutes to get it to here is actually very negative, really. So until Tesla cars are produced in the UK, into the super factory that Elon Musk has done, great. It's great, but he has to come all the way here. So by actually doing the right thing, by thinking that you do the right thing by buying an electric car, I think it's...
Yeah, but I think most people who buy a Tesla, I think most people, certainly that I've spoken to, understand that it's probably carbon negative by the amount of crap that's produced from a...
Yeah. Production type thing, but over its lifestyle, and then the recycling of the batteries and all those kind of stuff is going to be quite an interesting thing.
But then that's a tricky one, because how do you innovate without starting
that's it.
somewhere?
Exactly. But I think it's local markets and old-fashioned type thing, really. I go to the Strand Market quite a lot, and I buy products. They're not very cheap. That's the whole thing, really.
That's the issue.
But they're very good. So if I have red meat once a week, and I buy it from the little producer or the little lady who does duck breast over there, the quality, the way the duck has been reared, the whole way. The cost, it cost me 10 quid for 2 big breasts, really.
That's where I think meat should go, 100%. I don't think we should necessarily stop eating meat, because we do need the cycle of us in with animals is important. Yeah. But being able to get a duck breast or a chicken, you can get a chicken breast for probably under £1 or under £2.
I think there was a 99p chicken type stuff at one stage.
That's completely absurd.
That's it.
It's completely absurd, and I can't imagine it can be very good for you.
That's it. Yeah. So, but it's cheap. So it's what you do with your money. I don't have much money, so I buy cheap shit.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's it. Maybe buy less of a little bit better stuff, and I guess you could cook a bit more. I'm not sure how much it costs, because I've not been in a McDonald's since I've been to Hungary I was like a 16-year-old. I went to Hungary. That's the last time I went to a McDonald's. So that's 29 years ago. Actually, it was quite interesting. There were gherkins, pickled gherkins in the McDonald's. The franchise was a little bit interesting, but here, not that been. I'm not sure how much.
Why haven't you been since? Just because it's.
Because I'm not interested in the food.
It's terrible food.
No, it's pretty terrible, but I think it's quite expensive for what it is.
I do, yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
And then
I've never understood why.
That's it. So it's actually for the nutritious value and the whole stuff as a treat once a year or once every 16 years. Why not, really?
Or twice a year or whatever. Like, a handful of times. Go wild. But being more conscious about what you're putting in your body seems to be like a good idea, considering people are very, very quick to put medication inside their body.
Yeah, to mitigate the McDonald's they've been to and their triglycerides or their HDL and LDL ratio not being very good, really. And then you take statin to mitigate that, really. We could mitigate very easily the warming of the planet with some scientific stuff which are not going to cost the international community an awful lot, really. But should we give that to the planet? It's the same thing, really. Oh yeah, we should, so we can carry on doing the same. Yeah, great. That's the problem, really.
And then we'll never learn, and if we do end up...
I don't think it's... I think the mass extinction is not really a problem, really. That's the whole stuff, really.
Yeah, but I think most people, from my understanding, it's not necessarily mass extinction of humans. I actually think...
A mass extinction of humans? I think it's all about a mass extinction of humans.
No, I think most people are worried about mass extinction of animals.
Of animals? Wow. Well, that's... yeah.
But that's context within itself.
So, in the since life has existed on Earth, I think 99.4% of all species have died.
But
if that's not mass extinction for you, that's the whole stuff, really. The last at the city boundary.
But this is human-made. This is different.
No, it's not different. The outcome is going to be exactly the same.
But we're causing this mass extinction of animals.
Yeah. Well, last time it was a massive asteroid.
Yeah, but that's different because that's whatever. Because we've got a conscience.
The effect. It's
bad for us to hurt animals.
It's bad for us. But no, it's not bad because we've got dominion over animals in the Bible anyway. That's so we've been justified about the whole lot.
Yeah, but for all the people who are vegetarian and vegan and they think that we should...
But they've good on them. Yeah. To actually do it, because without them there'll be even more animals being reared in a bad fashion, for sure.
Yeah,
and then I think they've got a good moral high ground, for sure. And I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
and I think if we were all doing our little part to actually reduce our consumption of red meat, especially, maybe white meat, secondly, fish, maybe a bit, I think we would go quite a long way. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
It would go quite a long way. But there might be the army in the street to ask you to go to McDonald's to eat some shit, really. Because if we start not to eat too much of those kind of stuff, where does things go, really? That's a bit the problem, really. There's if stability...
If we completely remove ourselves from... If we completely stop consuming... to put it at the top of the dominance hierarchy, put it at the top, in McDonald's or whatever, then there could be...
But it's going to be a problem, because those people, where are they going to get their livelihood from? They're going to be pissed off that you don't go and buy some shit that you don't need. That's the problem, really. So their needs are not going to be met. Because the whole stuff is
warped.
It's going to be quite bad, really. So they're going to have to lay off people, close some shops, and do the whole lot. And then we're going to be made to look bad for not having gone to bloody McDonald's. So we're going to have laid off people, really. Because that's a bit the whole stuff, really.
Yeah.
That's the way it really works, really. Amazon is telling us is they're employing lots of people, or they're giving job to lots of people. Actually, they're actually not employing people effectively, really. And I think that's a big problem, really.
Them not employing people or them giving people lots of jobs?
I don't. You can give people lots of work, really, but the employment is pretty precarious, really. And if you talk to your delivery guy who comes, who gets your click and the next day delivery from Google or from Amazon, well, you talk to him, how much he has to pay to rent his van, how many thing he needs to, how much he's paid per delivery, all those kind of stuff. Well, it's pretty precarious, really, you know. And for a job that it can be automated very soon, there's going to be drones dropping shit in your garden in no time, really. That's the thing, it's going to be great, really. We're going to be able to click and get the whole stuff straight away, instant gratification.
Even better than now.
Even better than now. It's not a very easy subject. It's a difficult situation, but I think if we all individually, very gently, and unfortunately a bit slowly, we were looking at the reasons why we do what we do and who we are, and how we respond to our ever-changing environment. I think we would go a very long way. And I think it could actually, because the solution is about individuals. In the solution of those global kind of problems is on individuals. That's the whole stuff. And individuals always think that it's somebody else who's going to do the change, when actually them, if they do little change and their neighbor does a little change and their neighbor does a little change, the whole stuff is having to change, really. And the day nobody wants the packaging in Tesco and they leave the packaging in Tesco, well, the next day Tesco doesn't do packaging.
That's exactly what my brother told me to start doing.
But if you do it on your own, the Tesco security guy is going to beat the shit out of you and give you all the packaging in your plastic bag that you have bought from Tesco. Okay? Because you're going to disrupt all the other people, really, and giving them bad ideas, really. So that's the whole thing, really. Do we want to use Sunday as a day we don't consume anymore? Oh yeah, but I work 6 days a week, therefore Sunday is my only day. Well, okay, yeah, great. Now is not really an argument because there's online delivery anyway. There's Ocado who can deliver your food and all that stuff, really, okay? If we were to actually not consume at all on Sunday, like Sabbath, like we were, it's sabbatical, it's like a bank holiday, it's a holiday, we stay home, we do things with people, we have a bit of time, we stay put a little bit, really. Stay put, don't do too much. Try to mitigate how much you spend on a Sunday, to reflect on your week of spending and all the rest, really. That could be quite an interesting stuff, really. And we used to do that quite widely at some stage, really.
Yeah.
In France, supermarkets are closed on Sunday.
Yeah, completely, aren't they?
Yeah. I'm not too sure if the GDP of France is worse off for that.
Yeah, but that's the same, like, focusing on the GDP is the same issue with
but that's what
the difference in a dominance hierarchy, because it's like once it gets above a certain point, we should stop being. Yeah. We should be focusing on getting everyone up to a certain GDP.
Yeah,
every country. Yeah, and then instead of England being $40,000 or dollars or whatever it is, it's like
40,000. Yeah, I'm not even too sure. Really. It's quite it's interesting.
Yeah,
but I think it's more individual type stuff rather than global type solution thing. Sort your shit out, clean your room and your kitchen, and
maybe you can help your neighbor do it.
And if you talk to your neighbor and maybe he wants to do the same than you, and you can help him to do it a bit better, why not, really? Like, have a little, if you can get a little, if you can take the public transport a bit more or do things, it doesn't have to be an awful lot, really. But the more people do the whole stuff, the better, really. You take your bike. Look, in Bristol, there's lots of people who bike. It's one of the greenest city for transportation ever. But it's like shitting polluted still, really. You look at the M32 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's completely bonkers, really, But nonetheless, it's quite a good city when it comes to the whole thing, really. So how do we do, really?
Well, they might be bringing in a
congestion tax. Yeah,
good. That should be the case in every city.
that's it. Yeah, there should be park and ride. Oh, they're already park and rides.
Yeah.
You stay and you park at the park and ride, and then you take the electric bus to go into a city. That's it, really. So we keep the cars for the countryside.
Yeah.
Where we can pollute a bit more.
100%. Yeah, but it's so sparse. It's so less. It's a lot less dense rather than all of it staying there.
That's it. Do you know which is the most polluted city in the world from a combustion engine?
Is it like Shanghai or something, or
The highest level of nitric oxide?
is
Gibraltar,
in
southern Spain. Most polluted city in the world with nitric oxide. When I was looking at Sentinel, I was looking at the Sentinel satellite, who was really looking at the production of nitric oxide, and one of the most polluted city in Europe was, or maybe not in the world, in Europe maybe,
because
was Gibraltar.
I'm just looking at a list now, and it says it's just got like India, China, India, China, China, India, India.
Yeah,
India.
that's it. China.
But I don't know if this is by.
Varanasi, nice one.
But that's the. I mean, India is absolutely crazy. That's one of the things that a guy from the IPCC said, where he was like urging Indian politicians to read the report just to start to raise awareness of it.
Yeah, they've told Modi was shaking hand with Macron on in Élysée Palace in France, and on the year that Trump didn't sign the Paris Agreement, or took himself out of the Paris Agreement, to everybody's disgust, when actually he wanted to put America's first and increase the production of cars and steel and stuff like that to enhance his GDP, to get more growth and to get more wealth and create more jobs. That's a different story, okay? And Modi was shaking hands to Macron, and actually on that year he doubled the consumption of coal in India from an extra 500 million ton.
Yeah, but the Paris, it's all bollocks, isn't it? Like they all just do whatever.
Yeah, well, it's guidelines. It's guidelines.
Yeah,
it's guidelines,
and they're ridiculous. I've read it, and it is completely absurd.
That's it. It's absurd. It's too much. But take less your car, eat a little less red meat. Look at where the water's coming from, look at where your investment and your money goes to, and vote for the people who actually champion what you're talking about, really. There must be a few people locally, and they can be put to the forefront, really, and see a bit how they're going to deal with power, how corrupted they're going to be in 5 minutes, really. Because it's easy to talk in our room here about pharmaceutical, about banking, about automotive industry, all those kind of stuff, really, But they've got so much PR, they do quite a lot of good things as well, really. That's the whole stuff as well, really. So
it's not all bad. Otherwise,
that's it. But some of it is a little bit absurd, a little bit, really, and I think it's a bit. Really strange that in the case of pharmaceutical they haven't actually changed a little bit their profiteering model to actually look a little bit further, because all of a sudden once the antibiotics don't work, nobody's going to buy them, really. But that's a bit the problem.
But then they'll be able to make money still off methadone and all the other things and painkillers and stuff that people are addicted to.
Oh yeah, they can do a bit, methadone.
That's why
People who are heroin addicts, I can tell you, if there's no antibiotics, they're gonna die really much faster than they're getting high. Really, okay? And your hip replacement is not gonna go very well, and cancer is not gonna be very good, really, because when you got chemotherapy, you've got a copious amount of antibiotics, really, okay? So without antibiotics, there's no chemotherapy, so you can say bye-bye to cancer treatment as well, okay? You're going to say bye-bye to quite a lot of things, really, if there's no antibiotics, okay? You're going to have to clean your fucking hands pretty thoroughly not to get a bug that is really... And you're going to... I had streptococcal tonsillitis not too long ago. I had not had antibiotics since I had my appendix bursting. I was quite happy to have antibiotics, really. I was really glad. I was really poorly. And I knew that it was going to get better at some stage, but I was going to be like shitting bricks for a few more days. And I was not really super well, really. So antibiotics really helped me quite nicely on that one, really, in a way, really. So the day is all very antibiotic resistant. Your white tonsillitis is going to take a very different thing. Your little cough, pneumonia. Oh, all people who've got pneumonia in the winter. Bye-bye. Poof, 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 poof. That's going to go really fast, really. All the kids, oh, it's got bronchiolitis. It's got little upper respiratory tract infection. Poof, 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 poof. Gone, baby, gone.
So it's gonna come home to roost.
Yeah, I think it's coming to roost. No, it's fine. At the end of the day, it's fine. It's not a problem. As individual, it's not a problem, really. And as far as nature is concerned, it's just a blip. Really. It's just a blip. It's not going to be a problem at all, really. Nature takes over the whole lot, and it's going to be our effect on the planet if left to its own accord. Do you think in the next 60 million years there'll be any trace of humans? Not even in Chernobyl, which is a pretty fucked up place.
Yeah. In
terms of the next 20,000 years, we got an exclusion zone. 60 million years, that's it. It's gone, really. Like we are. And the Earth has still got 4,000 million years to live, really.
Is that the prediction until it?
Well, yeah, until the sun goes a little bit bananas. And then we're going to be a bit too close to comfort, really. The Goldilocks zone is going to be pushed a bit further. Oh, unless unless we colonize the moons of Saturn, that should be quite balmy. If we are not too close to Saturn.
What, to go that far out?
Yeah, in order to get the whole lot, really. And after, when it explodes as a supernova, we'd better get the blast on the good side of Saturn, so we don't get too many things. We're going to have to have a lead nappies. Protect your balls in lead. So you don't get sterile. Anyway, so that's it, really, In the grand scheme of things, it's not a big problem, really. And yes, my children's future is much more, or is it uncertain than my great granddad. Not too sure. I think the future is always a bit uncertain. Anyway, really.
There's always an uncertainty.
Exactly. So is climate change really an issue, in my opinion? And should we focus on it? That's the whole stuff. Yeah. Should there be so much noise for us not to focus on ourselves really a little bit? And as individuals, I think there should be a little bit more noise for people. But people are in pain, so that's a great stuff, really. Pain is a great motivator to actually for people to get a bit the solution, really, or fall into pitfalls and things like that. Really.
To try and figure it out.
Yeah, a bit, and know a bit more better who we are, I don't know, you're 20 years younger than me, and then you get a fair amount of understanding of what we're talking about compared to me at your age, really. And therefore, by the time you reach my age, if you carry on a little bit, you'll be a bit further along the track, a little bit, really. And maybe your kids might be further along the track as well, and maybe people you meet, and all the rest the next 20 years, really. If I mean, really. Because that's the thing, really. It's just people who are 80-year-old, we're not going to change them, really. And thank God they are more likely to die sooner than you, really. That's really, bless my great-grandparents and my grandparents and my parents, really. They're going to hopefully die before me. And I think that's a great, great stuff, really. The problem is if my kids behave like my grandparents, it's going to be pretty fucked up, really. We talked about that with religion by tradition and religion by knowledge.
By knowledge, which is what science is. It's religion by knowledge.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, should we end it there?
Yeah, cool.